Nowhere do we enjoy new opportunities more than with Alaska's Arctic resources. Oil, gas, minerals, fisheries, tourism, transportation, the list goes on and on. We can best seize these opportunities by working together to invest in our facilities, in our education, and our workforce. Last year in these chambers, I noted that Alaska was at the crossroads for oil and gas development in the Arctic. At that time, we faced numerous hurdles to exploration of Chukchi and Beaufort Sea and National Petroleum Reserve and ANWR. Today, I believe we're at the cusp of a new era of Arctic development and poised for a renaissance in Alaska's oil and gas development. For the first time in a generation, I believe we will see exploration this summer in the Arctic. And let me repeat that, this summer in the OCS Arctic for the first time in a generation. Now, it sounds great to say that, but it wasn't easy getting there. When I was elected to the Senate, Alaska spent decades looking for the next big bonanza. We all remember that old bumper sticker about just one more boom. That's all we need. For 40 years, we focused on our efforts almost exclusively on developing the Arctic National Wildlife Range, ANWR. The conventional wisdom, and many of you believed, that this new administration, and I will say, some thought my election, meant Alaska would be locked up even further, with no new development on federal lands and federal waters. But you guys know me. People have worked with me for years. I took that doubt over Alaska's Arctic development and took it as a personal challenge. Today, in just 3 years, we have accomplished more than in the last 30 years to open up federal lands and waters to development. Starting with the new president on down and across political boundaries in Congress, I've argued that Alaskans can develop these resources responsibly, just as we have done for the last 40 years on the North Slope. Within my first few months in office, I brought Interior Secretary Ken Salazar here to see firsthand what we're doing, how we're doing it, who are our people, how we're developing our oil and gas. And we have brought him back here every year since. And we've also arranged visits for top officials from the Coast Guard, EPA, Army Corps, NOAA, Transportation, all the key players regarding oil and gas, may they be directly or indirectly. We wanted them to see and touch and feel what Alaska is about. My goal has been getting them comfortable with offshore development by showcasing the new technologies and investment in world-class science. After the Deepwater Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico, we had to work double time. We had lost some ground with the administration and the public. As chair of the Senate Oceans Subcommittee, I worked to build a case for increased investment in Arctic science and facilities to support the development. We're proud that the former Lieutenant Governor, Fran Ulmer, is now the helm of the U.S. Arctic Research Commission. She is strategically positioned to make key recommendations to the federal agencies on how to build the world's best Arctic science program. Already, the Interior's Bureau of Ocean Energy Management has invested, and I'm going to repeat this because it's an amazing number, invested half of its national science budget in Alaska. More than $60 million. Half of their budget is here in this state on Arctic oil and gas development. Just last summer, Shell, Conoco, Statoil signed a groundbreaking agreement with NOAA to share baseline data in the Arctic. As the first company in Alaska's Arctic, Shell has stepped up to enhance its operations, to go far beyond what is required to ensure safe and responsible development. As Coast Guard Admiral Tom Ostavo said, and I remember him saying this because I was somewhat surprised, but I thought he knows best. He's the Coast Guard Admiral. He knows what he's preparing for. And he says this: this will be the most environmentally sound, technologically advanced drilling program anywhere in the world. Anywhere in the world. In recent months, Shell has secured permits for exploratory drilling in Chukchi and Beaufort Seas. This means thousands of jobs this summer, working on drilling rigs, transporting workers, gear, supplies to rigs, and associated vessels. Shell will move their rig with 23 other associated vessels to assist them in this project. After years of frustrating stalemate, and I heard many comments from you all here over the last 2-3 years, we've received the final permits for CD5 project, the first within the National Petroleum Reserve. And you know better than anyone why that's important. ConocoPhillips plans to produce up to 18,000 barrels a day to go right into that pipeline as we look for every opportunity to fill the line. They will also provide hundreds of construction jobs and, of course, revenue for the state. These developments are great news for Alaskans. Getting here has been frustrating, I will tell you. And you've heard me call it before, the regulatory whack-a-mole, like federal agencies. You knock one down, another one pops up. And if you recall last year at this podium, I talked about an idea, a piece of legislation that I introduced, and cut through all this federal maze, create a cross-agency coordinator for offshore development. A month later, the President took up the idea and ran with it. The Interior Department Secretary David Hayes was appointed to head a new federal coordinating working group for Alaska energy development. And you are seeing the results of that, because now agencies are working together, focused on the end result, and not having contradictory comments back and forth, but figuring out how to move things forward. He was just in Alaska, and the group is making the permitting, as I said, less bumpy for Conoco and Statoil as the next two large developments. A year ago, I proposed, right here, moving air permitting from Arctic offshore development from EPA back to Interior. Check that off the list. That is done. As we clear the way for Arctic development, we must build critical facilities and equipment necessary to support its development. This means Coast Guard vessels and icebreakers, a deep water port, a communication backbone, and support for Arctic shipping. We're making some progress here. The Coast Guard recently briefed me about the helicopters and cutters and other assets they have assembled to participate in this summer's activity. And as they finish that analysis and work this summer, we will spend the time through our committee to analyze the additional resources they will need as we continue to develop the Arctic. This marks a significant change to the Arctic. It is as a new ocean has just been opened up. And the Coast Guard, which in fact is just what's happening. The nation must provide the ships, the aircraft, the bases, and the men and women to fill these responsibilities for the Coast Guard in the Arctic. Despite dramatic budget cuts in every federal agency, the Coast Guard is slated to receive a modest increase this year, budget to design a new, sorely needed icebreaker. Now we're years away from the vessel doing its essential mission, so I'm working with the Coast Guard to ensure that they reactivate the Polar Star this year to prevent her sister ship, the Polar Sea, from being decommissioned. We estimate that just a little bit of work on those two ships, we can keep them active. And we've seen more recently, as you all know, what the Healy can do in regards to Nome and making sure they have the fuel. Along with this fleet of privately owned ice-capable vessels, this will put Alaska and the United States back on the track in the Arctic. Still, our work is not done. We need to secure federal, state, and private resources to support the Arctic development for the long term. That's why, as the chair of the Senate Oceans Subcommittee, I've just introduced the Arctic Science Endowment Fund. My bill creates and funds basic science in the Arctic Ocean, helping pave the way for responsible Arctic development. As we develop our Arctic and oil and gas resource, we must heed the wisdom of a former mayor of the North Slope Borough, Mayor Edward Ida. He reminds us that as development in the Arctic comes and goes, it is the Inupiat people who remain subsisting on the region's rich natural resources. I believe we all have a role in educating the American public about our role as the nation in the new Arctic economy. We cannot cede our ground to Russia, Canada, or China. Believe me, they are not waiting. They are moving forward at an aggressive pace. These countries are investing right now in deep water ports, ships, resources, mapping, and more. China, which isn't, well, they may think they're an Arctic nation, but they're not. But they are busy in acting like one. They are seeking participation in the Arctic Council and is building new vessels to supplement the Ice Dragon, their current icebreaker. Meanwhile, the United States still has not ratified the law of the sea, and I will tell you, I thank the legislature for your work in continuing to support the efforts, which provides us international framework to exercise our rights in the Arctic. Let me commend again a couple other folks. First, Representative Jewell and Senator Stedman as chairs of the Northern Waters Task Force. Thank you all for doing the work you do. Your work clearly makes the case for more active partnership between the state of Alaska and the federal government to responsibly meet challenges and opportunities in the changing Arctic. Now is the time to invest in Alaska resources, to match federal and private funding to develop a deep water port, advanced marine navigational aids, high-speed broadband, affordable, reliable, alternative Arctic energy sources to power this economic growth. Now is the time to make these investments.